Great, so SQL server provider and in-memory database provider are different from each other. Now the result is, after switching, when we now search for a flight and we want to book one, let me just book a flight here. You will see that afterwards our list of our bookings will be empty. So I will log in now and book one. You can see my bookings is empty, right? So this is now an issue and we need to fix it, and that's just a single line of code because we just need to adjust the mapping. So go ahead now to our entities class, data, entities, and you remember that part here on model creating, right? So here we got our custom mappings and we need to adjust it a little bit further so that we go ahead and say model builder dot entity of type flight again. Let me just zoom in a little bit, right? So model builder entity flight, and this time we add dot owns many, dot owns many. So one flight has many flight bookings. Great. Okay, now we can save it, and this is our reference. And as I said, that wasn't necessary before because the in-memory database provider is working in a different way than the SQL provider. So if you have previously taken another, challenge or another course on ASP.NET, you might be familiar with the idea of, database migrations. So how you update and downgrade the database. So if you know that and you are wondering why we're doing that here, well, in the end, it's just the same. So even a migration will in the end have that on model creating called, right? So in any way, we need to define how our database is getting mapped if we have special conditions such as, foreign keys. So any constraints, right? So our flight has arrivals, our flight has departures, our flight has reference to many bookings, right? So this is special. These are constraints that we need to define here. So if departure and arrival wouldn't be that complex, so if they would be primitive types, we wouldn't really have to define them here. So this is why you might be wondering, why is it here, right? So we only got that remaining number of seats as a concurrency token because that was required to prevent issue in our application, right? So, or possible issue. And we have to define the passenger primary key because we haven't specified one like int ID. So this is why we set the primary key to email. Well, and for everything else, those two are just here defined because they're complex data types, and we got the constraint to many bookings. So these are really special elements. So each of them here is not a primitive type, and at least here we got a foreign key or something like a foreign key, which is referencing to many bookings. Great. Okay, so this is definitely some more advanced ASP.NET stuff, right? So all of that mapping, and there are some templates out there if you use an ASP.NET Core MVC default application, or go ahead and implement the standard authentication, then you will get a fold out with migrations and all that stuff, which nearly handles everything on its own for you, which is absolutely amazing, right? But this is really the low-level code so that you can absolutely do it on your own, right? We want to explain you what happens in the background because this is what makes you a great developer. And if you see it in the end and you find an easier way to do it, that's amazing, right? But for now, learn it the way we're teaching it because you will get or gain the most important knowledge. Okay, so now that we have added those bookings, let's go ahead and delete our database. So server SQL Object Explorer, there you go. And then select the flights database, you got that right here. And let's just right click and delete it. And since our account, which we use to log in, has, very, very high rights, or he has enough rights to create a database, right? Not only read and write, but also create a database. So let me just delete the backup, I don't need that, and close the existing connection, right? So now our database is gone. Let's just completely start the application. Also, the new model that we have created here now, right, including the bookings, will get applied to that new database. So let's just give it a second until it's completely loaded. And when we now again search for flight and click on book, enter some information, I will be able to see my booking again. So let me just log in and book the flight. And now you can see that when I click on my bookings, that I now have the information here saved again. That's great. Now, when you take a look at the application and you open up the flight table, a database, inside the tables, you can now find booking table, right? And that one is new. That happened because we added or entered here our flight constraint to many bookings. And if you view the data, you can now see the flight ID, passenger email, and number of seats, right? So this is the booking information. Awesome. So now the final thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and definitely exclude in our program.cs, we need to exclude the connection string, that one here right here. We bring that outside of the source code into an app settings JSON file that you can find on the right side in the project explorer. So we'll do that in the next video.